This story starts in the dark with a woman searching for supplies in an empty, abandoned bar, a speakeasy on the edge of space. Now she's fumbling for small power cells. This space station hasn't had many bright days, and now this condemned empty bar might be her only hope. She's pulling up the power cells that she's grabbed from behind the counter and running up to the decorations. There's a mannequin of a woman in distress, a nasty looking sword, and a robot detective with his finger pointing out as if to say, "What are you doing here?" It's accusatory at best, but she moves the arm down, reaches behind, adjusts some of the power cells. She's been needing hope. And finally, if she can get this robot working, maybe there's a chance. She'd been looking in this bar after having broken in for any sign of her lost boyfriend. But if anybody could help Stieg come back, find where they might have taken him, I mean, this thing used to do the detective work before. I don't even know how old it is or how long it's been in here. She fires up the power cell and stands back, and green lights turn on in the eyes. A faint smile appears on the overly robotic metallic skin, and then the green fades from the boot up mode to clear white blue. A trustworthy color. Hi everyone, my name is Youssef Sleiman, and I am playing a tabletop role-playing game called Caught in the Rain. This is a solo RPG designed for creating mysteries, and I kicked off a session last night and I thought I might as well record the rest. I got caught in the rain earlier this year, and I was really looking forward to just running a couple of interesting stories. It supports horror stories, science fiction stories, noir, fantasy, but all around a investigator exploring a mystery. It's written by Nicholas Robinia and published by Ravensbridge Emporium. They haven't sent this to me. I just wanted to do an actual play. So when you see me with my hat on, that is the fiction. And I'm also going to spend some time explaining a couple of the rules, and that's when I have my hat off. For this game, I created a detective, a robot detective named Mark87, and I think you just got introduced to him. Along with creating a character, it has you go through the steps of creating a random generated mystery. There are several tables in the back of this book, and I'll mostly be using the ones for noir and science fiction because I was inspired by the Miller character from The Expanse, and I was inspired by a Pathfinder character that I wanted to play. So doing an actual play of a solo RPG means that I'm essentially sitting down and constructing a story for you. And I'm doing it for myself too, because I wanted to see where this character would go. Caught in the Rain uses a scene creation mechanism that has players choose one of 4 different types of scenes. There's the investigation scene, which is where most of the actual action takes place, and then 3 others. A truth scene, where the detective sits down and studies the clues that they've gone out and collected. A rest scene, where they are actually rebuilding and rebuilding, resting, recuperating. And then there's also a obligation scene. This is where Caught in the Rain offers something that I haven't seen in a lot of games, where your bond, your relationships, you actually get a mechanical benefit inside of the game for making sure that those get met. Inside of this operation, you've got a lot of different random tables. And so I'll try to refer to those and mention those without my hat so that you know when I'm pulling up a random table or when I'm just making it up. In the 2 scenes that I did last night, I essentially collected the first couple of clues. And in 4 scenes, the day ends and the character has to rest or get more fatigued if they just work through the night. So let me catch you up to what's already happened in the story. The name's Mark. Mark87. His voice is relaxing, calm, almost like it was programmed to make people at ease. My name's Nix Croman, and my partner, my boyfriend, Stieg Farnell, was kidnapped last night from this bar, and I need you to help find him. His eyes are still showing signs that he's unaccustomed to the body. Maybe the power cells aren't working just right. Excuse me, how long have I been in this bar? Forgive me, it's been, if he's counting the wire band right on the streaming internet signals that he's picking up over the space station that he used to know so well. It's been 50 plus years, and who knows how long he's been collecting dust, pointing an aching finger at who knows what and who knows where. I don't know. You've been here since I've first joined this place, maybe 10 years ago. I came in only a little while ago, and you've always been kind of funny looking. I didn't even think you might be real, but yeah, it worked. And so I, they were going to junk everything in this bar. Now I'm helping you. You used to be scrap without even knowing it. Now you got a chance to get out of here. So now I helped you. You got to help me. Help me find Stieg. Well, why don't the police or anybody else go look for him? Why do you need me? Ah, the police are just a waste. Have you even been around? Well, okay. And she catches herself before saying something more embarrassing and spells it out this way. Look, the cops aren't really going to look for a guy like Stieg. He's a prosthetic addict, and he can't go very far without his meds. Now, that said, I know he's all paid up. There's no reason for anyone to repo or take him, so he must have gotten himself mixed up into something awful. And I care about him. Mark, 87, just Mark for short, looks around the corners, checks out the bar, and surveys the room. He's got a pretty good insight, and it's clear nobody is watching this place, but we don't want to stay here for very long. He sits up and starts snooping around. Look, he's running his mechanical finger over the bar and then starts sifting through the bottles, picking up items behind the counter. I've been obviously out of commission, and I'm a little disoriented. I used to have an apartment, a place. Mark 87 walks to the far corner, surveys a corkboard, a set of classified ads, missed connections, opportunities, jobs, things you wouldn't want necessarily posted on the internet. Can you help me out any further? Can you get me back on my feet too? I keep on helping you, you keep on helping me. That's how this works, right? Good partnership. Nix agrees. And that's when his eyes fall on a handwritten message scrawled and tucked into the edge of the corkboard. You recognize this handwriting? It's a cryptic message, and as soon as Nix runs over, she says, Yes, that's Stieg's handwriting. Oh my god, what on earth could this mean? Numbers, letters, I think that's a word, but it's kind of messy. He wasn't exactly a great penmanship. He didn't have a whole lot going for him. But there's a good chance this code just came out of his system somehow. All right, we'll take it as our first clue. Let's get home. He checks his time. It's about 3 a.m. Aren't you, you know, all tired from being human all day? Aren't you tired from being all standing up and looking creepy all day? Yeah, that's fair. But she yawns in his face. All right, let's walk you home. I don't think we're going to find anything else here. So in that first scene, when we introduce the investigator, it's the first scene in every Caught in the Rain game is an investigation scene where you look for where you might find clues and then decide on what that clue is. Random tables are a part of that process. Now, even though it's late in the evening, my investigator's still fresh on the case, technically. So I started up a second scene. Outside the speakeasy, the two figures in shadow step out of one of the windows on the edge and then walk out the front like nobody's business. Nobody was watching them. Nobody pays attention in this corner of town. Nyx in her close-fitting coat and Mark in his detective hat and costume jacket. He's not wearing much else, but when your whole body is made for exterior, you don't need anything else, except maybe pockets. And that's what his hands are resting in now. After Mark walks Nyx home to her apartment, it's time that he get reacquainted back with the city. He needs some time to begin the investigation again, and he assures her that if he finds anything, he's going to come right back to her. After all, she saved his hide, or metal-plated hide. The robot detective walks without much in the way of servo whispers or clunking feet. Instead, it all sounds relaxed, but he can tell that he's not the newest robot on the block. Advertisements for the newest androids show a skin plate, something that looks pretty close to human, not quite. He's staring at one of those ads now when he walks up to a nightclub where humans are throwing up in the corner and a couple of people are wandering in front. A set of police officers are frisking people, and he's not sure, Mark isn't sure what else is happening inside of the nightclub. Nothing good that he needs to get involved in. If he's going to find information, it's not going to be from these people here. However, he gets the attention of a couple of cops. Someone who flashes a light his way recognizes metal instead of skin, and oh, he tips his hat and walks away. It's a faint head move that really does the job of getting him out of the scene, but the cops, he recognizes now that there may be some extra bias against androids that wasn't there when he was a cop 50 years ago. But one thing he does know is cops. He knows police work. Mark 87 used to be a decorated police officer, and as he's walking back into the old precinct building, which hasn't moved, then he recognizes, oh, he might have an extra lead in there. Now walking right into the lion's den for an ex-cop who used to be a cop all of a couple of minutes ago in his experience. Well, it's been 50 years for them. Maybe it's going to be a little bit different. He tries his luck going up to the front stand, and a nice officer greets him and allows him access to one or two records, anything that the public might be allowed to view, and he gets to see extra charges for the owner of the speakeasy bar, and he also charges of corruption, and um, there's also a lingering moment where he's handing back the files and recognizing that he might have to work a little bit harder getting out of this building when she closes her hand on his mechanical hand and says, hey, you got a license for yourself? You've got a couple extra thermal layers that aren't up to code anymore. Um, it's kind of a hazard for humans to be wandering around with that stuff. If you went off or the wrong tick, you might explode. So let's take you out back. And at that moment, he realizes being taken out back might be a sign of just getting him off the street. With a little bit of deft work, he acknowledges that he can follow them. He goes back there. And when they are turning the corner, he sneaks off. Running into the shadows isn't exactly his style, but it's the first time that he's ever really been on the lam. That said, he's done undercover work before. This isn't new. It's just a rodeo with a different type of horse. One thing he got out of scanning the file, there's charges against the owner of the bar. Apparently a cover-up, perhaps? Maybe less. There's definitely a lot of security around the kidnapping. The information that's stored in the file suggests that earlier that day, the place had been crawling with police, investigators, news crews even. Something else had gone down in the bar and he hadn't heard what from Nix. But that said, it's too soon to wake her and ask. After all, it might be 4 in the morning. Now, the next scene that I need to do with Mark 87, instead of an investigation scene, I need to do what's called an obligation scene. Like I mentioned earlier, obligations are part of what makes your character a person. So you're supposed to attend to something that is not necessarily the investigation, but it's just another part of their life. And you create your first one during character creation. You might have a moment where you create and add new obligations during an investigation. So Mark 87 has an obligation to start tracking down his old belongings. Where did he lose all of his stuff? It's been 50 years. Where's his apartment? Where's his car? I mean, all of those things I wanted to have explored. This is a actual play called Outdated, and the obligation literally is about somebody trying to pull their life back together. So, what's the next scene exactly about? Well, he's going to start tracking down his old stuff. Not using one of the random tables in the back of the book, I get to figure out what else is there too. Part of the reason is that this is important to do. You've got 4 scenes in a day, and I've already used up 2. I've got 3. I'm going to probably do another investigation before the day ends, but if my day ends without attending to an obligation, the investigator gets more fatigue. So obligation scenes are framed by asking the oracle tables in the back of the book one question. How does your investigator attend to their obligations? So how does Mark 87 attend to the obligation of tracking down his belongings? Here we go. 2, 6, that, steal? 5, 6. Sacred. Oh no. What are we going to steal here? 1, 3. Steal sacred clue. Hmm. The way that the Oracle system works is I use steal sacred clue to construct a response about how my investigator attends to their belongings. What's a sacred clue? Sacred clue to where his belongings might be. Or, I mean, anything. After 50 years, there's records everywhere. He's definitely stealing some kind of records. After walking through the city, the space station of White Home looks altogether run down and new to him. Mark recognized the path that his feet programmed to walk to his apartment, his favorite restaurants, his usual offices, all replaced with different shapes of buildings and so on. He found himself, instead of revisiting and lurking around an apartment that no longer has a space for him, he ran into the newspaper. And while the city streets were early in their day, he walks over to the records of city life in the space station and carefully, discreetly slips away archived papers from his old cataloging the years that he'd missed. So this means my investigator gets to mark off one of his obligations, and it's the only one of his obligations. Boop. Oh, and I got to mark the clock one more. Great. All right, what's the next scene? I've got trouble brewing at a level 4. I've only used 1 fatigue, and I haven't even tried to manage. Well, I did use my character's long coat and hat over my robot body to sneak away from the police. Yeah, that's how that worked. I think it's time for more investigation. Let's start one now. Starting an investigation starts with one of these. Roll to see how much danger is waiting for you. I got lucky this time. Nothing. I get to start at what what Caught in the Rain calls the discovery phase. You see, in this game, an investigation scene is broken out into a sequence of 4 steps. Now, you could jump right into the middle if those steps are pretty danger free. But if there's more going on in a mystery, you might spend more time dealing with problems. So this means my investigator gets to mark off. So actually, I rolled a 1, and I'm supposed to add in my danger, which is currently a 4. That makes it a 5. In this case, I have to introduce a level 1 threat. In this game, a threat is just anything that could be blocking an investigator from continuing their mission. A level 1 threat is something that's going to be a problem but isn't looking for you. Level 2 is someone who's looking for you. Level 3 is someone who's actually trying to harm you. So I hit the random tables at the very end of the book. 6, 4. Dangerous traffic. The good news is that making a new threat puts my danger back down to a 2. New threats cut it in half. The bad news is I have a threat that I need to add to my investigation scene. The station lighting is turned from night to the pinkish hues of pre-dawn. And as Mark 87 continues walking, he recognizes that the lighting is also supplemented by something else. The noise of cars. Lots of cars. A morning commute. And he's wandered into a busy district. And he happens to see across the way the advertising sign for a warehouse of prosthetic parts. What are the chances, right? On a station this size, Whitehome doesn't exactly have a ton of industry, but it has enough to uh, keep its people busy and the money flowing. A warehouse like this, it's probably a place where somebody like Stieg, who loves good prosthetic cybernetic parts, you probably came here relatively often. And at the same time, that's probably not where a typical cop might run to go look for clues. The big problem is, how do you get there across the street? He's a frail robot. That's when he puts his cybernetic brain, or he puts his android brain to work. Mark 87. Mark 87 checks for traffic lights, city crossings, and is calculating a mathematically fast route back to the warehouse. He wants to get there to be able to spend some time poking around before the day gets too busy. And the nice part is, with his mind moving fast as circuits, he's able to calculate something. The way that the station's traffic curves along the inside ring of a spinning torus, the station allows him to see a little bit ahead of what the traffic looks like. Maybe if he just times his steps right with a little bit of good calculation, he doesn't have to worry about rushing across a 7-lane highway. He just has to carefully step one side to the other, assuming no other variables jump in the way, like somebody even angry or busy on their morning commute, which actually happens more often than you think. So the way I framed it, I am setting up what's called an attribute test. And every investigator has 3 stats. Power, which is strength, speed, that kind of thing. Insight, which is intelligence, resourcefulness, quick-wittedness. And then method, which is actually like true creativity, craftiness. Actually put resourcefulness back down in that. So my character is trying to mathematically time out the best ways to step. He's not trying to be fast. He's using his brain. The way this works is I need to roll above a 6 using the 2 dice, a 2d6, plus the stat of a 2 on his insight. I rolled double 12s. This means I rolled double 6s, which is 12 plus my 2 is 14. Rolling doubles in a game of Caught in the Ring also introduces something new, a plot twist. But before we get to the plot twist, we resolve the fiction of my detective succeeding at what he wants, and because I rolled over a 10, I get a bonus clue. Let's see how this goes. The bonus clue is an ace of clubs. Along with the ace of clubs, I rolled dice on the science fiction table, and I've got a black market lead to go with it. Black market lead. Good thing I was already tracking down this warehouse. Mark 87 definitely steps right in front of a warehouse-sized truck, and then, within 2 seconds of getting smashed, steps out of the way again in time for an opening across the lane. In this way, Mark makes his way right over to the warehouse. It takes a hot minute, and he recognizes that the warehouse ahead, oh, it's spray painted and tagged with a tattoo or with a pattern that he recognized on Nix's tattooed arm. He wonders now, are there other connections to this? And when he gets in closer, Sylvan Steel, the name of the warehouse owner, is printed on the side of the wall, and Sylvan Steel sticks in Mark 87's mind as an important black market lead. And as he gets in closer, he recognizes that's one of the more popular um, prosthetic arms and replacement cybernetics in Whitehall. As he finishes his carefully calculated dance across traffic, um, Mark 87 gets up to the warehouse and decides to try to get inside. So there's my bonus clue, Sylvan Steel, and I also get to generate that random event. So that random event looks like this. 2-4, explore, 2-6, isolated, 4-1, treasure, explore isolated treasure. Walking in isn't too difficult as the warehouse has an entire crew preparing for a massive drop off. It's a jump ship inside of the space station, and the payload that the ship is dropping off is at least 10 feet tall and square, 10 feet tall and surrounded by boxed edges, Sylvan Steel printed on the items. What on earth might be the shipment arriving here? The detective, the robot detective sneaks in a little closer. So after the infiltration stage, the Caught in the Rain says that the next stage is called the discovery stage. Where are you going to find clues? This involves another attribute test, and you have to pass attribute test after attribute test to make your way through the sequence of investigation. If you don't, well, you have to try again, but it gets harder. With everyone distracted by the massive drop-off, it's not too difficult for Mark to lean in and slink between the crates and bundles of cargo. Now, the hardest part is what can he find when he gets in there? His robot eyes start scanning all of the different bills of lading, the invoices, papers that are on any desk, trying to collect information about Sylvan Steel at just this moment. Maybe there's a sign of Stieg Farnell anywhere in this, or maybe something that somebody would want Stieg for. At this point, we're just collecting information and data. Again, I'm positioning the robot to be the careful observer. This is an insight roll again. So his insight is 2 plus whatever the die roll is. I hope it's greater than a 6. 10 plus 2. Ooh, all right, we got another bonus clue. There are plenty of details in the warehouse, and with so many people distracted by the large object's arrival, he has an easy time sniffing it out. Ooh. And so I drew a 5 of diamonds. So last time I drew a clue, I was using the Sci-Fi table. Time to use the Noir table. That went off the edge of the table. According to old house rules, if it's on the floor, you reroll. Okay, 6, 6. An incongruous object. An incongruous object. Oh, and I just realized that I'd already drawn a 5 inside of Caught in the Rain when you draw cards of the same rank. So I've got a 5 of clubs and a 5 of diamonds. That means you deepen or you strengthen that clue. You can expand on it. My 5 of clubs was that encrypted message that Mark found in the speakeasy that was written in Stieg's handwriting. I wonder how that relates to what we find here. How do we deepen that? If Mark's robot eyes could widen, they would. As he scans, what becomes apparent is that the hand-scrawled message in his coat pocket that he'd found from the missing man's missing man's handwriting, it's related to the shipping codes here. The shipping logs follow a similar pattern, and in fact, he's finding snippets of Stieg's code scattered through all of these shipping labels. There's something connecting his special code to the movements in and out of Sylvan Steel. I wonder what this is about. With a lot of data stored in his head, Mark decides it's time to take his leave. Large men walking around with cybernetic arms and like pistons pulling and moving the cargo crates. They could make a big mess of Mark if they'd caught him snooping around in here. And he suddenly got the sense that if this place had been the reason Mark was disappeared, he didn't want to be the one caught unawares. In the next second, we see Mark stepping back out of the wireframes and into the traffic again, except instead of calculating this time, he jumps quickly onto a piece of traffic, one of the trucks that's low and easy to grab onto. Okay, so I set this up to be a clever or crafty way for him to escape, but I realize I might need to roll power on this. I'm gonna go with crafty because he's cleverly stepping into doing that typical Dick Tracy move of jumping onto the back of a vehicle. So his method is a 1, and like his power is a 0. So I definitely don't want to be rolling that. Mark 87 is an antique android. He does not need to be getting into any fights. All right, let's see how this goes. Can he escape the scene? You bet. Except, all right, so 8 plus 1 is 9, and I believe that means that there's a complication added to this. Let's go to the random tables. The way Caught in the Rain works, you roll a 1d6 anytime you fail a roll of some kind, and this leads you into a consequences table. I rolled a 1, and that means I increase the level of a threat by 1, and if there are no threats present, increase the danger. I'm going to increase the police presence by 1 to a 2. I'll explain why. Mark holds on tightly to his hat as he seizes onto the corner of one of the low wire framed trucks. And as he hunkers down, a police car happens to be sitting in traffic behind it. And they notice him, and he notices them noticing him. And there's this awkward pause of um, prey and predator. In the next couple of seconds, Mark lets go of the truck and steps out into the shadows. Oh crap, I think I've drawn the attention of the fuzz. So, mechanically speaking, this means that I've escaped the scene. I get to not worry about having to figure out another way to get out of the area of the warehouse, but I've also increased the danger of my the world around me. The threat of the police presence, they're now looking for a robot who is out of date. Uh, that's gonna be an issue later on. So that's the fourth scene and the end of the first day for Outdated, the solo role playing game, actual play of Caught in the Rain. Um, that means what happens on when you filled the clock. First of all, you would mark a fatigue for every obligation you didn't fulfill. And good thing I took some time to go looking for my old lost stuff. You'd also clear all the marks on the clock, refresh the clock, and you'd refresh your obligations. You got to do those again the next day. And then you got to generate a random event that's going to have to end in another attribute. And then you start a new scene at the very top. Random event, 3, manipulate, redundant, opportunity. Manipulating a redundant opportunity. What could that mean? This part of town's gotten worse since Mark 87 last walked it. Hey, buddy. Hey, what's up? You looking for work? There's a stiffly old hand coming out of the corner, and it's a bunch of pipes, and he recognizes, oh, that is a much older model of robot, too. Hey, buddy, if you're trying to find a job or work, I can get you connected. No, thanks. I'm doing just fine on my own. Yeah. When it's chrome plates like you and me, it's not an easy time for it. You just be wandering around on the streets, and how else are you going to get extra coin and cred? Come on, if you need a hand with anything. Oh, well, maybe I'll use something. Maybe I could do with a hand. And Mark 87 gets in closer, and it's an old rusted can of an Android with like tuna can connections and cables coming out of the edges of what would be the head of um, a tall box droid. And he leans in closer. Look, maybe I could use a hand with something, Mark says. And he leans in closer. He's going to look for an opportunity to get maybe more information about what's happened to this city since the last time he slept. Well, I'm definitely going to be rolling my method on this one. This isn't exactly intelligence, and he's not strong arming an old robot. So, a method of 1 plus my roll of 11. Great, I get an extra clue out of this. 3 of diamonds. Perfect match to go with my existing 3 of clubs. Time to strengthen another lead. The 3 of clubs was false charges, a cover up by the cops. The sign that somebody wants this guy gone and not a whole lot of questions asked. Hmm, let's see how that plays out in fiction. In a couple of minutes of conversation in Old Binary, a language that Mark recognizes from years and years as a younger robot, that this old guy might also use too. Using binary was so much faster. It made communication simple and easy. And it also allowed for nuance inside of it unexpectedly. What he learned, though, was a little bit disturbing. In the arms race between law and order and organized crime, cybernetics has created a problem for the police. So they've been purposefully trying to shut down or embed their own cybernetic connections. That means sometimes these major players in the underground arms ring might wind up disappeared by the cops themselves. That's the story that the old codger says. Now, is that what happened to Stieg? It's only suspicion now, but it definitely adds to the layers of mystery surrounding this missing persons case. And that's it for day number one of Outdated, my solo actual play of Caught in the Rain. Let's see what happens next in the investigation. I'm kind of curious about whether or not all of these threads can come together, and it might be time for me to try one of the other scenes, a truth scene where he starts pulling these clues and establishing a truth. I'm eager to see how that plays out. Thank you for watching, and if this is enjoyable to you, give me some encouragement in the comments or push the like button. And regardless of that, I'm going to keep on playing because I'm curious about where this show goes.